And a legal showdown over state laws to protect female athletes in school sports. It's about to get underway at the U.S. Supreme Court. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Dana Perino.
Good morning to you, partner. I'm Bill Hemmer. Kind of a day of history, right? A bit unusual. We will hear the audio from inside the U.S. Supreme Court that will include the questions from the justices as they hear two different cases challenging state laws that ban biological males from competing against girls and women. Now, the high court's reviewing appeals from Idaho and West Virginia after lower federal courts ruled against them. Arguments in the Idaho case expected to start any moment.
And we have Fox team coverage, starting with Alexandria Hoff. She is live outside the court. But first, let's get to our legal panel. Carrie Urban, Jonathan Turley, and John Yoo. Great to have you all here. Jonathan Turley, it's the first we've been able to hear from you. How do you think this court will question these, the plaintiffs and the defendants here?
Well, it's an interesting case configuration because, first of all, one of the litigants does not want to be in front of the court. She's attempted to dismiss her case, which may reflect the fact that her equal protection claims are very likely going to be turned down by the court. You have justices that have said different things in prior cases. Justice Gorsuch, not that long ago, said that for work discrimination, that this was a type of sex status. You also have Justice Barrett, who came out very forcefully in a recent case where she said this is not a suspect class. I expect that Barrett represents the majority of the court here. We'll be listening for those justices, but I do think that these states have the upper hand with this court.
Okay, that's a good preview. John Yoo, what about you as you get ready to listen?
I think that another issue that's important to the court is that they let democracy work, that they let the states decide how to handle this tough issue of whether to allow transgender athletes to participate in women's sports. That was a message the court announced loud and clear last year in this case called Scrimeti, which is about whether states could prohibit transgender medical treatments for minors. It's a very similar issue to the one today. Here, can states start to regulate and decide for themselves, and more than half of the states have banned it. States can decide for themselves what to do about transgender athletes. The second issue, as Jonathan just mentioned, is that in Scrimeti, the court also said, we don't think that transgender are what's called a protected class or suspect category who have higher constitutional rights, like women, who have higher constitutional rights, like race or religion. When they do, then the court subjects the government to higher scrutiny. But when they don't, when there's no suspect class, then all the government needs is what it's called rational basis, just that the government's regulation has some rationality behind it. And it's hard for me to believe the court would say we're not allowed to have different categories for men's sports and women's sports.
And let me ask you this, Carrie Urban. The Wall Street Journal has an op-ed today by a physician who wrote that athletics is about bodies, not identities. As a physician, I earnestly hope that the Supreme Court will recognize basic biology and conclude that nothing in the Constitution or civil rights law requires us to subject girls and women to brutal and unequal harm. Now, to a lot of people, that makes sense. That's just common sense. When it comes to ruling, though, is common sense part of the decision making?
I think in a case like this, it is. I think that anyone watching the landscape in this country have watched sports just being taken away from girls piece by piece. Yep. And I wonder how much the amicus support will come up today in the arguments. Those are the friend of the court briefs that are filed by various groups and people on behalf of both parties before the court. And the reason I mention that is because there are really interesting briefs filed on behalf of the female athletes. You have ones from former Olympic gold medalists. You have ones, this one in particular really interested me. It was 5 women Olympic rowers from the 1970s and 1980s. And they said, hey, look, we lived before Title IX and after Title IX. If you guys don't do something about this, Title IX is useless. What's the point anymore? Sports for girls. There was a brief filed by the United Nations official who oversees their efforts on violence against women and girls. And I'm just going to read this quickly. She put this in her report. Over 600 female athletes in more than 400 competitions worldwide have lost more than 890 medals in 29 different states. in sports rather, to males who identify as women. I mean, these are powerful facts and compelling situations that the Supreme Court justices are undoubtedly going to be considering as they hear arguments today.
Carrie, hang with us one moment, and then I'll get Jonathan Turley to weigh in on this too. John Yoo is making the point here that maybe you just let the states decide. On screen here, we can show the 29 different states that have banned transgender students in sports. I don't know if that's a solution or not, Carrie, or what you think about that, or maybe that's just making the waters more cloudy. You know, Riley Gaines was on our air an hour ago, and she was making the argument that you know the way that college athletes are paid now? Like down the road, you could pay for a biological male to play on your team. And you probably would have a really good shot of putting a really good team together. Just you first, and then Jonathan Turley about what John Yoo's argument is there. Go.
Yeah, it's not just the states. You have the Olympic Committee, you have the NCAA. You know, everyone's looking at this and saying, whoa, this is a crisis. You know, we're eliminating sports for girls. There's no other way of getting around that. And I think the reasons the states have taken these actions is because they didn't have a choice. Congress has not stepped in. They have not clarified what biological sex means as far as protected class within Title IX. And so these states started passing one by one these laws that said, look, we're going to preserve women's sports. We're going to protect women's sports. And the way we're going to do that is simply by saying, hey, look, biological boys can't compete in female sports. Otherwise, we're going to lose them.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.